My angels. I needed a few extra bells tonight. It's super dark. I'm in England. It's like 5 o'clock. It's not even that late, but yes, it's dark. But we've got our candles going. I've got my little heater going. I hope that's not too loud, but I'll probably have to turn it off in a minute anyways. How are you guys? I'm Autumn. I'm the host of this podcast, and we are in the Rebloom series right now. So go back and watch every other podcast episode that you can get your hands on. We are going through a foundational look at the original design of man. We're looking at 3 questions: who is God, who am I, and what's the cause of all of this that we call life? What are we doing? What are we living for? What are we dying for? What's motivating us? So we just did the knowledge of good and evil, okay? Okay, in order to understand the consequences of the fall, we have to understand what was at stake in the first place, okay? People who are teaching the doctrine of original sin usually highlight the moment where Eve, is tempted by the serpent, and then she tempts Adam. And that seems to be where we are like, ooh, that was the moment. That's the naughty moment in question. But if we go right to that moment, and that's what we teach, we are missing so much that the author has already told us. So today we're going to be looking at man and woman. And that is such a major part of the text before we get to the actual sin, if you will. Okay, we're going to read, and we're going to read, this is out of Genesis 2, 18 through 25. So you can follow along, or I'll just read it to you. Okay. And Yahweh God said, "It is not good that the human being should be alone. I will make a helper who is a suitable partner." So out of the ground, Yahweh God formed all the beasts of the field and all the birds of heaven, and brought them to the human being to see what they would be called. And whatever the human being called the living creatures, so they were named. The human being gave names to all cattle and all the birds of heaven and all the beasts of the field. But God found no helper who was a partner suitable for the human being. So Yahweh God let a deep sleep fall upon the human being. And when sleep had come, God took a rib and filled out its place with flesh. Then Yahweh God formed into a woman the rib he had taken from the human being and brought her to the human being. I love that he's translating it in the actual Hebrew, because Adam is human being. Anyways, I don't know. Then the human being said, "This at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman," or in Hebrew that's Isha, "because she was taken out of man, Ish. That is why a man will leave father and mother and cleave to his woman, and they will be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his woman, and they were not ashamed." And I love that it says, "and his woman." Okay, right. Where to begin? God help me. Okay, so Adam has, up to this point, experienced life in unbroken obedience. Okay, everything has been set up. Yahweh has made an optimal, hospitable home for Adam to live in. It's full. The cosmos is all functioning and working. Everything is in harmony and balance. And Adam is now kind of existing only with these creatures that God has made. A couple points that I want to make is that Adam is living in abundance and obedience, and he has already been told about the tree of life. So he has been given his first limit, his first prohibition. And that is to say, this is all life, okay, which meant God is at the center of his life. Eat from all of the fruit. Everything God's made is good, permissible, go, limitless, no prohibitions, right? The threat to his life at this point, up to this point, is only that he would eat from the tree of paradox. So Adam is alone, but Yahweh has said it is not good that the human being, that man, is alone. And I just have a tiny thing to add to that. Any person that makes you feel that somehow you are lacking because you feel that you want more than just God, they are wrong, okay? Both God and Adam do not feel that it is good that man is alone. So God is not enough, okay? God is not enough. He's enough for us to exist. Yes, he is the source of our existence and life, but he is not enough for man to love his life, to enjoy his life. And Yahweh knows that. So I want to dispel the first way that you have been taught about any of what it means. God, don't worry about that. You're single, or you've just, whatever it is. People can lose people, and then there's almost this inference of like, well, if they're really like strong in their faith, they'll just be good on their own, right? There are people, I believe, that are called and sent into this world with a mission that is unique, and it exists by God's design for them to come into this world and be single for their mission. So it's not to say you can't be, but if you don't feel happy alone, then don't let somebody tell you, well, God's enough. I just think it's funny and it's wrong. It's shaming, actually. All right. Okay. So what's interesting to note is that up to this point, everything has been pre-installed for Adam. Everything's been made and created, but Adam is now being brought into the creative process, and that has meaning. So we know that Adam is named, and he's named the creatures, and part of that in the ancient world, a name is a person's meaning and purpose. So he's bestowing meaning into them as he is naming them, and they are then orientated. Their process of belonging is completed with their naming, because that's what a father does, is bestows identity and meaning and sort of secures that sense of belonging into the child. In this case, Adam is relating first and exercising this with, practicing this and doing this with the animals. God is watching as Adam is looking for a suitable helper. So it's a little bit peculiar what's actually going down, because we're looking and seeing that Adam has been front loaded with discernment, okay? We are seeing decision making in its original design before the knowledge of good and evil was present. So we're like, wait, you can't make a decision without the knowledge of good and evil. The text says something very different. It's giving us a snapshot of what it looks like to exercise free will, decision making, discernment, right? Intuition without that knowledge. And it can be done, and it's done perfectly well. Okay, so up to this point, Adam is living in unbroken obedience with Yahweh and the creation, and everything is in balance, and he is experiencing the best way to epistemologically explain how is Adam experiencing reality would be to say that, because he doesn't know paradox yet, so we can't say that he loves his reality, we can't say that he hates his reality, okay? He just knows that this is life. This is life. There's no first mention before that. There's no experience before that. It's just the tree of life is at the center, and this is life, and life is abundance, and life is in obedience and alignment with Creator. Every need has been provided for him, and he is experiencing life. The first prohibition that he has been given is don't eat from the knowledge of good and evil, that tree, but he doesn't have any desire to. He has no intention or purpose to break that prohibition, because he has no need to. He doesn't have anything other than the understanding of the goodness of God. The goodness of God is something very different from the knowledge of good and evil. So for all intents and purposes, we have to define the goodness of God is just life. It's just his reality. It's all he knows. And because there is no ill will in his creator towards him, he has no suspicion, he has no cynicism, he hasn't experienced any malintent. So we can deduce that he himself has no need to break this boundary. His free will is given freely for God. And so he's just living out of that sense of I belong and I'm in harmony with creation. So it's almost like there's a neutrality about his existence. Adam is living between love and hate. I'm going to say that again because it kind of blew my mind when I heard that. Adam lives between love and hate. He experiences the animals and what's brought to him as a gift. Okay, he is able to experience it as a gift only because he does not seize anything. He doesn't strive for anything. He doesn't seize it. It's brought to him and he interacts with it, okay? The animals were a gift, but Eve was different because Adam both received her as a gift and was involved with creating her, okay? Adam could not yet love his life. He didn't know love and hate because in order to love, this is what Yahweh knew. In order to love, you must experience love, which is a strange thing to say, but this is what the author is doing. He is building a story of life and love, and they're not necessarily experienced as the same thing. Adam has experienced life. Life is good. And remember, in functional ontological terms, good just means functioning. That's it. It works. Everything works. That does not mean that Adam loves his life because he doesn't understand love yet. Okay? The story includes Yahweh is present, but he is present in spirit. Adam has not experienced for himself the feeling and the sense of love. So the next question we're asking in the garden is, what is love then? Okay? And what Yahweh knows is that his love is not enough. He is not enough. Okay? Adam must experience something that is embodied in order to feel love. And this is what happens when Eve is created. And Bonhoeffer is going to call this the unfathomable mercy of God. I love that. It's so beautiful. Okay. So Adam is put to sleep. Okay. So Yahweh, God, let a deep sleep fall upon the human being. And when sleep had come, God took a rib and filled out its place with flesh. Then Yahweh God formed into a woman the rib he had taken from the human being and brought her to the human being. Then the human being said, "This at last is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh." Okay, she has been called woman because she was taken out of me. That is why a man, okay, hold on, we're going to get to that. No, I'm going to read it. That is why a man will leave father and mother and cleave to his woman, and they will be one flesh. We're going to get into that. Okay. The sleep. Okay. Adam does not have the knowledge of good and evil. In fact, the author is going to emphasize at this point in the story that Adam is put to sleep whilst Eve is being made, which is just a little bit of an underscore to the fact that Adam doesn't need to know how everything is made. Okay? He is being included in the process as a co-creator, but he doesn't need to know how it's all made at this point. Okay, God is building a history of faith with Adam to continually show him I am consistently good and trustworthy. Why? Because in this case, Adam wakes up, right? And his response to it is unmatched from his previous from anything written previously in regards to creation or the animals or anything. Okay, Adam, and he's excited about it. Adam has been brought into the creative process. And why is this significant? Because God knew that the reason why Adam had not found a suitable helper among the animals was because they had not come from him. Okay, which leaves us to ask, what does helper mean then? And we will get to that. Just the quickest illustration that comes to my mind is when you have a child and you see that child for the first time, that moment after they're born, and you feel, I mean, if you're a parent and you've been fortunate enough to be able to have that experience, think back to the moment when you saw them for the first time. I mean, it's already starting before they're actually on this side of the world, out of the womb. But when you see them, it's just this moment of knowing, yada, I am bound to you immediately and eternally in some way I don't understand, by both a sense of responsibility towards you that I will insist upon, and a sense of love for you. Responsibility and love all in one moment. So Adam's reaction to Eve is different from all the rest of creation. He's not showing pride, even though he has been involved in this creation project, right? He is not showing neutrality like with the rest of creation, but he is showing true gratitude. He says, bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. He is bound to her in a wholly new way. Holy, W-H-O-L-L-Y, holy. He is bound to her in a wholly new way. And the reason why is because, how do I say this? He now knows that he belongs to her because she belongs to him. Okay, I'm going to say that again. He now instinctively, immediately knows that he belongs to her because she belongs to him. All right? Okay, I'm going to read to you from just a little bit more in this section. They are now no longer without each other. He belongs to her because she belongs to him. They are one and yet two. And the two becoming one is the real mystery that God himself has initiated by what God did to sleeping Adam. They have found from their they have from their origin been one. Okay, let me say it again. They have from their origin been one. Why? Because Adam was just Adam. And only in becoming one do they return to their origin. That's discussing not just their love, but their physical interconnectedness. That is their return to what feels like home. Okay, so the idea that the author is conveying is that the truth of Eve's origin is always going to be bound to Adam. Okay? And Adam is always going to be bound to Eve. But it's also never going to be about the abolition of their creatureliness as individuals. So you must have truly two different individuals in order to become one. It actualizes to the highest possible degree their belonging to each other, which is based precisely on their being different from each other. That is what it means for Eve. In the Hebrew, it's called Ezer or Ne'ezer, in the Nifil form, a helper who is a partner. Okay. Okay, so we're going to circle around the whole concept of Isha and Ish, and or so that's woman and man, or Eve and Adam. And Eve is, as the word Ezer is, she's set against Adam. It's that concept of against. We're just gonna highlight that for a second and look at what that means. She is not set against Adam in like relationally. She is set against Adam energetically. So what Adam has been given, remember, Adam is a little god in this world, and he has been given the responsibility of representing or reflecting God's benevolent nature to creation. That's a big responsibility. Now, he doesn't see it as a responsibility. He only sees it as life. But Adam has not yet felt loved. And God knows something. And I love how Bonhoeffer discusses this. He's like, God knows that in order for Adam to bear the weight of the responsibility of his life, he must feel loved. The love that he feels will support and help him to bear the weight of his responsibility. And that is why Eve is a helper, because her equal and opposite strength and it says clearly, again, you've got these words like equality embedded into the Hebrew text that it's so beautiful. But God is very clear. She is equal to him and he is equal to her. Equal in that they have been made perfectly in strength against each other, right? And she is there to help him to bear the weight of the responsibility that he has. So God has already determined that in order for humanity to enjoy their responsibility, they must feel loved. And Adam has not yet up to this point been able to feel loved because he has not had anything in a direct and opposing force embodied as himself in which he feels both responsibility and love and desire for, okay? And I think that what's cool is that this is kind of a little, remember we say as above, so below. So what is the spiritual reality of this? In theology, we have a term that's called perichoresis, and perichoresis or perichoretical love is it's the big word to explain that truth of that love gives and receives in equal portion, right? Equal measure. And God in himself, as we call, the Trinitarian concept, but really it's the energies of three essences that are constantly giving to each other in an unending cycle that allows God to be the infinite, uncaused, unaffected, divine absolute. In order to be God of the gods, the Most High, that he himself needs to feel the support and the love that he is able to continue eternally being God, because he experiences love, both giving and receiving. And when he makes man in his image, you and I, we are made with the same principle in mind. He does not expect you or I to be living on this planet and doing our life without feeling loved. Adam is effectively responsible for the outer world. Adam has been given the mandate to, rule over and till the ground and all this. Eve, at this point when she is made, she has been made for Adam. So in a sense, I like to think that Adam is responsible in his divine nature as one side of the yin yang, right, for the outer world, and Eve has been taken from the inner world, right, of Adam to protect his inner world, his heart, his vital organs. That's what the ribs do. They protect your vital organs. And that the author is telling us that Eve was made to protect the inner world. Okay, so that balance of the inner world and the outer world is, what do we see again? Eeks! It's heaven and earth. It's the seen and the unseen in an image on earth, okay? And he made them male and female in his image. So the image of God is a reflection of all that is the responsibility and love for the outer world and the responsibility and love for the inner world. I wasn't going to go into this, but I'm kind of playing around with this idea. I almost did a paper on sexuality last year and I chose a different topic, but I always think of how, in Christianity they say, be equally yoked, right? And for a long time, even in my own belief system, I thought that meant you need to be with somebody who is in your same faith or church or whatever. But I don't think that anymore. I think that what equally yoked mean, what is that ancient symbolism? It's to do with strength. Okay? You yoke an ox. You yoke you yoke oxen up, right? We yoke animals together. Why do they yoke them? They yoke them according to the strength and the weight that they can bear together, right? So this is like a massive reform and revelation to the whole idea of marriage or who you date. I would suggest that what God is saying is do not yoke up with somebody who cannot bear the weight of your responsibility in this life, what you particularly are called to, your mission, your path, everything that you are, you need an equal. Now, I just want to be clear. If you have whatever comes with your mission will be unique, and if you have, let's just be real. If you have a faith mission, somebody who's going to pull at that or tear that apart, that's going to be tough, right? I just don't want us to overly clinicize it or sanitize what that actually means. It does not mean, here's the empirical list of somebody, make sure they're a Christian and make sure they're this and it's not saying that. It's saying something much bigger. And I wasn't going to say this either, but everybody can say whatever they want about, let's just take specifically the Christian church as the example. They can say, you make sure you're yoked to a believer. And so you're like, okay, well, I'll pick a believer then. Okay. Been there, done that. That does not mean, if that is my biggest prerequisite, is that they believe the same thing I believe. That has nothing to do with the strength or the weight that I'm going to have to bear in this life. It has nothing to do with it. It has something to do with it, but it doesn't have everything to do with it, okay? Being able to recognize in your intuition your counterpart, the person who is capable of bearing the weight of your mission, your calling, your purpose, all of that, that is an extremely private, personal issue of discernment. And I'm saying it because I am definitely one who would push against that and support it with the statistics on divorce. It would not appear that the Christian philosophies are panning out any better for them than secular standards. Okay, that's just real. You want to measure fruit, you will know them by their fruit. Half or more of Christians get divorced. That means that whatever you're doing in order to develop these marriages, whatever presuppositions you're using are not working any better than people who don't use them. So they can't be true. So all that to say, I would encourage people to find a partner based on your own instincts, the person who you recognize, as Adam did with his discernment, God-given discernment and intuition, who is able to put that other side of the yoke on their neck and go. Okay, so what I want to explain at this point, I hope some of this is helping us to understand. The reason why I like to teach the doctrine of original sin this way is because if we if we look at all these little details, then what we are seeing is that, okay, Adam's in the garden. Adam has this existence. This is his reality. All right, Adam has his first prohibition. His first limitation is, or responsibility, right? Beyond what he understands as life, is not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Okay, but what happens now in the story is Eve is put into the story. And so the way that the writer is writing it is there are layers of responsibility and the additions to the story way before we get to the actual serpent tempting Eve. The next layer is Eve. And Eve is representative in the story of Adam's second limit or responsibility. Okay, when you think of a limit, if you think of loving someone else, it might help to think of it like that way. Like, as soon as you love, you have met a limit, because you understand that if I love you, I can lose you. Now, Adam didn't understand that, but Eve is considered the second prohibition because there is something at stake. Okay, if there's something at stake by Adam knowing paradox, okay, you can have something or you can lose something. Eve is the second limit because Adam now loves his life. Adam has suddenly a totally different outlook and reality because now creation is complete, right? I mean, it's not the seventh day yet, but the sixth day of making man and woman is the completion of creation. Okay, so where I'm going with that is that we now know that Adam's world is complete. And Bonhoeffer is going to say that Eve is Adam's world. Eve is his whole world. It's his heart. So the second prohibition is Eve. Now, when I wrote my notes, I wrote down, men will understand this section so much better than women because we're made so differently. So men will really connect. When I say Eve becomes the second limit, I think most men would be like, yeah, because men understand how responsible they feel for everything. They have, it gives me chills because they actually have a different part of the design. Just like women are, when we think of how when you say to a mom, you carry your children's hearts in your hearts, kill me now. It's just something you understand as a woman. You carry the weight of the inner world, of your family, of your friends, of relationally, you carry it. And men can't quite understand that in the same way either. But Adam's been given 2 prohibitions now, and Eve is the second one. So Eve is his whole world. Now, apart from paradox, guys, this is where you really want to tune in here. So apart from paradox, freedom and responsibility are one. Okay, Adam felt both free and responsible at the same time. He didn't think about them. He didn't separate them. Knowing paradox, okay? Suddenly, love becomes seeing your desire, your life, what you love. When you love your life, you desire your life, okay? When you know paradox, you split those apart. Seeing your desire for what it is knowing both blessing and burden. Okay? So your responsibility before knowing paradox is just freedom and responsibility. It's all happening. When you know paradox, when you know with the knowledge of good and evil, you suddenly see things as blessings or burdens. Love or hate, freedom, which is belonging, or responsibility. Okay? True life is experiencing what you desire as a gift, as a grace, as gratitude. Okay, I'm going to say that again. True life, according to God's terms, original design terms, is experiencing your desires as gifts, grace, with gratitude. Okay? Not overthinking things. Not overthinking things. The threat to life is knowing paradox, but then Adam's second limit is Eve, because now his existence includes living in the garden with the trees and experiencing his own love for his life. So what's the threat? Because if anything happens to that love, he could only hate the responsibility of it. Okay? If you hate the limits of love, freedom and responsibility, you will be left with hate, the desire to either possess or to destroy. Holy moly, hang on a second. Okay, so I'm going to give you the definitions from God of what love is and what is hate according to God in Genesis. Love is desire for your life. Right? Adam had his life. That's what was going on before Eve. Eve is the second layer to the story because Eve represents love. Okay? So when these two come together, the perfect human design is that he loves his life. Humanity loves their life because they are loved. And they go together. And God's being clear. And so love is desire for your life. Love is desire for responsibility. Okay? Love is freedom for that which is what you're responsible for. Okay? Hate, on the other hand, is a desire to either possess or to destroy. Okay? I'm going to say that again too. Hate is a desire to either possess or destroy the other, anything. Okay? Love is a desire for your responsibilities. It is a delight in your responsibilities. It is insisting on taking responsibility because you're so in love. It's being free for your responsibilities. Hate, on the other hand, is the desire to either possess or destroy. Okay, I'm just going to leave it there. You just chew on that one. All right, my angel, we're going to read a little more and then we're almost done. Okay, what am I going to read? Oh, we're going to talk about sexuality for a second. Just really good. It's good stuff. Okay, so the ultimate belonging to one another is, however, unquestionably associated with human sexuality. I will translate if this gets hairy. I can't remember how this goes. Quite plainly, sexuality expresses the two complementary sides of the matter, that of being an individual and that of being one with the other. Isn't that a gorgeous way to define sexuality? Sexuality expresses two complementary sides of the matter, that of being an individual and that of being one with the other. Sexuality is nothing but the ultimate possible realization of belonging to each other. It has here as yet no life of its own detached from this, its purpose. And the idea, and we're going to stop pretty close to here, is that your very body your body parts are telling the story of Eden. God is so good. In the story, he says we were made naked and unashamed. We stood before God. We stood in the garden, right, without the knowledge of good and evil, without managing or being responsible for paradox. And we stood before God, loving our life, knowing about love now, with our desires turned on, right? Adam, when he sees Eve, he gets really excited. He is excited now because now this kind of love, this bliss, right, is going to allow all of the responsibilities of his world to be lightened. And he is going to flip and enjoy his life, right? And her desire is for him and his desire is for her, right? Okay, so that sense of desire in and of itself, we fly right past this concept in the story. But that desire did not previously exist before her. Now he has he has desire, but he's not managing his desire. God's not managing his desire. He's managing the knowledge of what desire actually is. Okay, there is a good side to desire and there's an evil side to desire. And at one point, we did not split it apart and overthink it like that. We just experienced desire. Okay? Wanting something, needing something, okay? Being capable of something. We did not split them apart. God alone can manage the paradox, the reality of desire. And we are godlike, so desire is a strong, passionate, creative force, because desire creates children, right? Desire creates, all kinds of stuff, and we know that. I don't want to discuss too much post-fall yet because we haven't gotten there, but the idea is that the author is saying now they were made naked and unashamed, so they stood before God with their desires fully known. There's no shame in my desires. I don't even know what that is. After the fall, what happens is the sudden awareness of desire. That's why they want to go cover themselves, because they're suddenly aware of the reality of desire, the paradox of desire, the good of desire, right? The evil of desire, because now we're responsible for managing the knowledge of it. So what gets ruined is desire. Enjoying anything, right? Like the idea of, oh, your innocence is gone. Your ignorance of the knowledge of the good and evil of desire, suddenly aware of their inner dividedness. The shame comes from knowing that as a little God, I am capable of either wanting to possess something or destroy it. I'm capable of either. And what I don't want you to know is how capable I am, that I know that I'm capable of it. So I'm turned in on myself. Shame turns you in on yourself. It makes you want to hide. Because have you ever heard somebody say, if you only saw the real me, you wouldn't love me? That is shame. And shame is the inner critic voice of sicut deus, is what we're talking about. And it's not meant to be like that. And that's why Christ is always saying, love says, come into the light. I love all of you, right? Okay, all right, my angels. That is our end for today. What a huge way to end. I mean, I don't know. That's just kind of like a whole other conversation, but I love you guys. And tomorrow I'm back on. We're going to have our next little, I'm excited. Love you guys.